So Vice President JD Vance heads to Pakistan this weekend to lead the U.S. talks with Iran, the highest level meeting between the two countries since 1979. That's the Iranian Revolution, when that took place. The vice president is pushing for Tehran to come to the table in good faith.
I encourage the Iranians to come to the table seriously. We've seen some signs that they're going to do that. We've seen some signs of bravado. Fundamentally, we're in a good spot. They're reopening the straits. We have a ceasefire. And frankly, if they break their end of the bargain, then they're going to see some serious consequences. We obviously don't want the people of Iran to suffer, but we have a lot of leverage that President of the United States could use. And it's why I think it's so important for the Iranians to be negotiators in good faith.
Yep, let's see if that happens for the first time, maybe ever. Here to discuss this is the former Vice President Mike Pence. Mr. Vice President, great to see you. Your thoughts.
Thanks for having me on, Brian.
You're welcome. Your thoughts about the need to take Iran down while we can.
Well, look, there was a lot of talk about 5 weeks ago about America starting a war. This war started 47 years ago. And Iran has been waging war on America, on our most cherished ally, Israel, during those 5 decades. And I give President Trump all the credit in the world for pulling the trigger last year with Operation Midnight Hammer, going directly at their nuclear facilities, and then making the decision to unleash our armed forces, finally directly against the mullahs in Tehran, who've been claiming American lives, Israeli lives, using proxies across the region to wage war. Now we've taken the fight to them. And I have to tell you, I couldn't be more proud of the armed forces of the United States in cooperation with Israel. We have literally decimated the military capabilities of Iran. It's been a brilliant campaign, Operation Epic Fury. Every American should be proud. And I think it's set the conditions now where the president has been willing to initiate a ceasefire, to look for negotiations, to bring a diplomatic end. But my perspective, Brian, is at the end of the day, we've got to finish the job. If it can't be finished diplomatically, the United States of America, our allies in the region, have got to go back to the military solution. And I truly do believe this is a historic moment, not only to secure peace in the region, but to make the world safer across the board. I mean, Iran is the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world. And taking the fight directly to the mullahs, decimating their ability to project force, has made America and the free world safer.
But, Mr. Vice President, are you even surprised, knowing that Democrats, last time they were on the debate stage, they all said that Iran was the problem that needed to be handled. They can't have a nuclear weapon. Even though you know politics and been doing this for 20-plus years, are you even surprised about the lack of support for this mission among Democrats who should know better, talking about 25th Amendment and impeachment?
Well, am I surprised the Democrats are playing politics in the midst of war? No, but they do know better. I mean, the simple fact is, my years in the Congress on the International Relations Committee, my years as Vice President,
Governor,
people know on both sides of the aisle what Iran did to American forces during the Iraq War. They essentially provided the IEDs that claimed over 600 American lives. They've underwritten Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis that have attacked Israel, attacked American forces in the region. And, look, but this is a moment where I think the American people know that the president and our armed forces are doing what needs to be done. What I'm concerned about, though, is some aspects of what's being talked about. I mean, we've got to insist that they both surrender and abandon any ambition for nuclear weapons and programs. They've got to unconditionally open the Strait of Hormuz, and they've got to commit to ending the sowing of violence across the region through their proxies. My hope, my prayer, is, as the vice president and our negotiation team goes to Pakistan, is that they draw that line and say, that's what we need you to agree to. We hold them to that deal in the months and years ahead. We're prepared to strike and strike hard.
Right.
if they break the deal. But anything short of that could. The last thing we want is another Iran nuclear deal. The president and I got out of that deal back during our administration. We put a maximum pressure campaign on. Biden immediately returned to office and went back to the politics of appeasement. President Trump has reversed that and created the conditions where I think we have a pathway to a diplomatic solution, but we've got to have the sheer and credible force of the United States of America and our allies behind us to enforce it.
In a nation of 90 million, 89 million hate the regime, maybe more. How do we get those people the ability to rise up and not be slaughtered?
Well, it's not even a matter of getting them to do it. The Green Revolution back in 2009, when President Barack Obama remained silent, when people took to the streets, many of us in Congress rose up and spoke support from the American people. Then earlier this year, when you literally saw this brutal Iranian regime cut down 30 and 40,000 people that had taken to the street after the first of the year. Look, that's the other reason. I actually believe that if this ceasefire fails, and it looks like Iran has already violated the ceasefire now, I think not only should we continue to hit and degrade their military capability to project force externally, but I think we need to continue to double down on taking down their domestic forces that threaten their own people. I believe the Iranian people long for a new birth of freedom. I've met the people in the Iranian diaspora all across the country and across the world. I honestly believe that if we continue to create the conditions on the ground, you will see the people of Iran step forward and reclaim their country. And create conditions to join the family of nations in a future of peace. And
it could happen once the war stops. It could rise up right after that. We'll see the amount of damage when the internet comes back, which eventually has to happen. Mr. Vice President, always great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brian.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.